Let's speak to one man who knows all too well about working in some of the most dangerous places on earth. Frank, you've worked in some of the most dangerous and far-flung places. Just tell us about your experiences.
Well, I mean, to deal with the elephant in the room, you know, I'm based in a wheelchair because we got ambushed in Saudi Arabia 10 years ago. And the sole surviving member, the sole surviving suspect of the group that attacked us has been in custody, in government custody, for 9 years, and we still hear no word about the trial. There's no conviction. My cameraman was murdered. Now, that's a slightly different situation to the one that I think the report here is today coming out at, and I think one of the things this report highlights is the incredible dangers faced by local stringers, producers, reporters, fixers. These are the people that we rely on to do our jobs. We get to go home, but they face not only physical intimidation and danger from violent groups, but also very often pressure, judicial pressure from their governments who don't want them to speak out. And we are to some extent, we are in a kind of bubble because, you know, usually worst case we get deported. Occasionally things go wrong, like for Al Jazeera in Egypt, where you've got 3 journalists who are in prison, they say, for doing their job. But it's something that I hope we don't take it for granted. Iraq, you know, I remember going to cover the Festival of Babylon under Saddam Hussein. It was the safest place. Mm-hmm. You know, it was a horrible place to report on because there was no freedom whatsoever, but it was safe. So you travelled down to Hilla, or wherever it was, to Babel, you know, there was no fear at all. But then it's become subsequently incredibly dangerous, and people who we in the media, the international media, have worked for, they've had experienced kidnaps, death threats, intimidation, and likewise Afghanistan, which you know all too well.
Absolutely, and you know, as you mentioned, Iraq, it's topped the list again since 2008. But you mentioned Afghanistan, and again, a place where it's, you know, horrible to report on some of those things. But there was a sense of safety amongst the close, tight-knit expat community. But they've been so many journalists, local and international, have been targeted in recent times.
I was in Kabul last year, and I think you were there more recently. It is feeling increasingly dangerous, and a Swedish journalist was attacked recently. The hotel that we stayed in, where actually I've got a picture here of me with...
Yes, it's just up on the screen, and the Serena Hotel. That's
with Sami Mahdi. That was a year ago, and that hotel was attacked again by gunmen who got in, smuggled weapons in their socks, and then killed a whole load of people. They waited 3 hours. I don't know who they were waiting for, but it's becoming a very dangerous place, even more dangerous than it was before, to report on. I mean, obviously, if you go like on an embed in a conflict zone and you go looking for trouble, then the risk is going to be higher. But in Afghanistan, which has got a very lively press, as you know, I mean, it's one of the success stories of Afghanistan, that it's got so many good journalists coming up through the system and really pushing the boundaries. It's great, but my goodness, they're paying a price for it. And the really sad thing is that the default setting of so many people and groups is that if you don't take our cause, you're against us. They don't understand a middle line at all.
Absolutely. It's quite frightening, actually, as you mentioned, for people like you and I who go in, but the locals are the ones who suffer most.